Hi, everybody. For this episode, we're joined by Angie Erickson from Minnesota in the United States. She is the Director of Outreach and Communication for North Homes Children and Family Services. She's also an active community member serving as the board chair for her local YMCA. And she's a commissioner for her city's Human Rights Commission. As you listen, you'll find her to be accomplished yet humble. Angie, thanks for being a guest on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to
Well,
be here.
I share your excitement. You seem to get involved in so many things that are about the well being of people in your community. Angie, why is it so important to you that working to help others is a part of who you are?
I think I was privileged and lucky enough to have a lot of people in my life who sort of filled that role. So, both a very large and extended family network, as well as other adult role models who really were there to support and care and give the kind of guidance and structure that I feel like really helped set me on the path to where I am today.
Well, whatever they did a nice job because they instilled wonderful traits and values in you. Who are some of those people in your family that were really instrumental in helping you, I don't know, become the person you are today?
Yeah, so many. I think a couple of folks who come to mind right away are just my grandmas, both my mom's mom and my dad's mom. Um, in particular, just really showed that one, you can always still learn. So they were just women who were always still open to learning, um, and that you can still create and enact change over the course of your life, though that might look really different as you get to kind of different sort of stages where you're at.
Yeah, sounds like your grandmas were really important. And I know one of your grandmas is kind of like a hero to you, right? I mean, you really had a strong bond with them both, but there's one that a little bit more in particular. Can you talk about her a little bit?
Yeah, my grandma Jean was just a really strong, stubborn, wonderful woman, and I think, and I had kind of one of the stories that really stand out to me was just sort of having this moment with my family, and my grandma sort of made this comment where, I had a little bit of reaction and kind of called her out on it. Maybe that wasn't the most appropriate thing to say. And sort of the reaction of everyone else was like, you're just being overly sensitive, like, get over it. And, I think our perception often is like, especially old, like quote unquote old people, right? A very ageist way to look at it is, well, they're just stuck in their ways and they're not going to change anything. And, kind of left that interaction. And a couple of days later, I had a letter in the mail from her where she really thanked me for that opportunity to learn and to grow and to be able to continue to still do better. That was just such a powerful moment for me as an individual too. That like it's important that we own up that we aren't always going to say and do the right thing, and hopefully, we have surrounded ourselves with people that are willing to call us out on that so that way we can do better next time.
Wow, that's was really big of her to do that, right? And to send you that letter. And it's funny that you still talk about and think about it today. That's how
Mhm.
impactful it was.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
about your parents, your mom and dad? Were they pretty instrumental in who you are today?
Absolutely. They're both very different and
Hmm.
very interesting and funny individuals. I really love both my mom and dad. I also have kind of multiple parents, so calling, shouting out to my bonus parents as well
Yeah.
that I have that I get to have, which is really wonderful. And I think something that really stands out to me too about my parents is um, right, like every family's journey looks different. Every parenting journey likely looks a little bit different. And um, both my parents struggled at different times with drug and alcohol use, and kind of how that ended up impacting and shaping my life really ultimately has been positive. I think about the people that are now in my life because of that.
Hmm.
are really some people who are mentors to me, and again, really help set me on the path to where I'm at today. It gave me the opportunity to be engaged in knowing people within the SUD community and knowing how diverse that group is. And there's a lot of reasons why people might be seeking those things out, whether to escape from things or to get through something. And I feel like that's just added to my understanding and empathy around those experiences. So I feel like that's been a really powerful thing. I also feel like all of my parents are some of my biggest cheerleaders. So, if there's ever anything that I've, been interested in pursuing or doing, they're, they're usually like, do it. Like, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah. And here you are now being a cheerleader for all the young people that you support and all the other people in your community that you care so deeply about. You're kind of being their cheerleader as well. It's funny how sometimes those things work out. So you said like it was some struggles, but at the end of the day, it all turned out really good because you have these bonus people in your life, and you have, instead of 2 cheerleaders, it sounds like I think you have 7 cheerleaders, and that's great that you have that support. So obviously, your parents must have divorced at some point, I'm thinking. So when did they divorce, and how old were you when that happened?
No, I was really young, like 1 or 2 that they
Hmm.
separated. And actually, my bonus mom and my dad were together for a very long time. So she was, the other mom figure in my life from a very young age, too.
Hmm. And did you live with your mom or your dad like through your developmental years? Who were you with?
I lived with my dad, which I know is, you know, maybe less unusual now, but I think, especially in
Yeah.
the late 80s, early 90s, like that was a pretty unusual, um,
Hmm.
unusual thing to happen. And so really have a very close relationship with my dad, I think, because of that, because he really was kind of our primary caretaker. So two, that informs and kind of influences the way that I maybe, right, like all of our experiences do, like see or notice other people's relationships or interactions with their parents, is that, like, yes, my mom is, oh my god, a caretaker, right? Like, absolutely. And there is part of me that often kind of thinks is my dad, like, first, is like the nurturing, loving one, in a way that I think is maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, because it is unusual. I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say it's really high in the 90s percentiles or something like that, where if there's a divorce, the children generally live with the mother. How come the decision was made that you would live with your dad? I mean, if you care to talk about that, was there something about your mom's situation or?
Yeah, at that time, my mom was using, and I think that she just wasn't in a really good, positive place to help us and support us and take care of us, and she really needed um, kind of that opportunity to get some additional healing and support before um, before being able to have us in that way, and have us full time. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we were with my dad.
Got it. And did you still get to see your mom during those years, or you just didn't live with her?
Yeah, we just didn't live with her. And so, yeah, saw her. I feel like I know other folks who maybe have, like, extended families or divorced families, where it's like, the every other weekend, like, summers were with mom. um and we really didn't have an opportunity to have much more than that,
Hmm.
because when I was in, just before kindergarten, we moved from kind of the metro area to rural northern Minnesota with my dad. And so, my mom was still in the metro area where her support system was, and all of her connections were. And so it really did have to be on, like, those weekends and those longer trips, or over winter break, things like that. So
Well, it seems like your parents, for whatever reason, no matter how it worked out, it seems like they did the right things because you are such a grounded person and so focused on the well-being of others around you. Clearly, you were nurtured properly and have a strong sense of purpose and a sense of self. So that was clear. So what was school like for you? Were you outgoing in school? Were you kind of more introverted? Did you get good grades? What was your school years like?
I think I think most people would say I'm definitely extroverted, and was the person who felt like I was friends with everyone or most people in my class. I My best friend, who's still my best friend now, but we became best friends in third grade. Her joke is like she didn't really identify me as a best friend until like sixth grade. Um,
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I was like,
because I just kind of like inserted myself in her life, was just like,
hmm,
you're so fun, like you're really interesting, let's talk. And she's still very much kind of a reserved and quiet person. um so I would say yes, I kind of like to talk to people, like to be engaged with people. I'm definitely academically driven. I got, good grades through school. But I also really loved learning. So I mean, I loved reading. One thing that my parents did that I'm so appreciative of now is that when we would get home, of course, if we had homework, we'd have to do that. But we had to read for 20 minutes before we could like
oh,
watch TV or, go do other stuff. And I would often, though, be the kid who was like, I would read, at the dinner table, like through dinner, way into the night when I should have probably been sleeping. So I've always loved books and loved learning.
that's great. And you went on to get a master's degree. So obviously, school was really driven, like for you, was driven, like you said. When you were younger, what did you read? What did you like? Novels? Did you like science fiction? What were you into?
Like a little bit of everything. I think of myself like really young, like early elementary school. I loved R.L. Stein books, right? The Goosebumps. Um,
Yeah.
there was a series called Redwall that I remember being really into, which was kind of like fantasy with little animals.
Did you read Junie B. Jones books?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, they were so great. Yeah.
yeah. And I think as I got older, kind of like, and where I feel like I am now, I really read a mix of like fiction novels. I love sci-fi. Um, and I also love reading nonfiction. So like people's stories or things about, learning about like new things that maybe I don't know much about. So,
Yeah.
and I've always kind of, yeah, I'd say that's kind of been a long time trend where I'll go in between, like, all right, I've read a couple of fiction books. I need to have now something that's not fiction, or vice
Change things
versa.
up a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. Yeah. Well, reading is such a wonderful exercise for the mind. And it's something that we should all be doing 20 minutes a day at the very least. I think I know when I read more, I seem to be so much more mentally acute to things around me. I just feel like this. It's like when I go to the gym and lift or run or whatever, it helps me physically. And just as reading does that for me. So I bet that played a big part in who you are. And so you got a master's degree eventually at the end of your academic career, and it's in healthcare management. And are you doing the kind of work you hoped you'd do with that? I'm just curious if that is where you're supposed to be, or did you divert and go down someplace else that you ended up in your role now?
I feel like a little bit of both. So, and the coolest thing about youth work, right, is that those skills literally apply to any position. So anyone who's been in youth work in some capacity, or if they're still in youth work, um, the skills that it takes to be able to engage with all of these diverse youth, right? The skills of having to figure out how to work with partners, right? If you're a beacons partner, or if you're a program that you're going into a school, right, you have to learn how to navigate all of those relationships. So I feel like that just translates so well to
Hmm.
anything that somebody might do. And kind of in my role now, I do a lot more kind of like administrative support. So overseeing marketing, really trying to help tell like what are our client stories, what are our family stories, and why does that matter, and how are we really impacting? Because we are doing really great work, and our staff are doing really hard work with these incredible youth and families, and definitely the master's degree in business administration and healthcare management. Um, we're a mental health nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
operate like a healthcare business. And so a lot of kind of the skills and the coursework that I did, I feel like I translated directly into the job that I have now. And a lot of it also still supports the work that when I am with youth, I do still get to be one of our high ropes course facilitators out at our facility. So I do still get to have some touch points with youth, in particular in that setting. And it really has only kind of supported it really supports all of those pieces.
That's great that you are doing what you love and what you hope to set out to do.
Mhm.
Angie, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back after this message. Angie, right before the break, you kind of concluded talking about your education, your earlier years, and things like that. Thank you for sharing your story and letting our listeners understand you as a person. It's funny, I was thinking about my life now. And when I think about the kid who was always reading, sitting at the table or sitting at the lunch table in school reading, I think at the time when I was a kid, I would have said, why are you doing that? Why don't you like get on? Now I'm just totally envious of people like you. I wish I would have been, I wish I'd have been reading more when I was a kid. It's funny how life changes. I'm wondering, so what kind of compliments do you really like to receive? Like, what if I was to say something really nice to you, Angie, what would be the biggest compliment I could give you?
Ooh, gosh, I feel like I'm skirting the question. I'll come back to it, but I feel like some of the best compliments I've received have been sort of the like when the compliment is maybe directed actually at somebody else, in the sense that, I've maybe worked with somebody or I've mentored or supported somebody and somebody else notices that in them. So like to see their growth and their strength, um, that's really affirming to me because right, it's like here's a validation that what we do works and what we do matters. So like that's the first thing that comes to mind. But I think maybe one that's if it's directed at me personally, a compliment that I really maybe attached to is intelligence. I feel like I've worked hard to get to where I'm at. I don't always make smart choices, right? Or like I maybe don't always say the smartest thing. I might trip over words, but that does mean something to me. Um, and I think too when people notice how much I do care, right? Sometimes we do things or show things, show how we care, show how we love, and it's not always noticed by other people. Um, right? And that's not the reason why we do them. We do them because we actually do love and care. But when people notice and validate and acknowledge that, to me, that also feels very good and very affirming.
Your answer, if I was a betting person, I would have said you would have answered that the way you did. I described you as accomplished yet humble. And so your first thought was, I take so much satisfaction when somebody else does something really well. And that's the epitome of, I think, what a good youth worker is, or somebody who cares about human beings, is we get so much satisfaction out of seeing other people succeed. But yet then here you are with this advanced degree and and your intelligence, obviously a very smart person. And that there's so much humility that goes along with intelligence, I think. And I really admire that in you. What character traits do you respect or admire most in other people, Angie?
Mm. I think like driven and hardworking. But I mean, I struggle using the word hardworking, right? There's also kind of that myth of like if we're not getting to a certain place it's because people aren't working hard enough. And I don't believe that, but
Hmm.
I do believe in like hardworking in the sense that we're always trying to do the best that we can with what we have at that time. So that's something that I'd really admire in other people. Something that I really admire in other people, because maybe I don't always do this myself, is folks who are really uh, individual in the sense that they really know, they can really name and see like these are the things that I need for myself, um, in a really confident and it's not selfish, but no, I'm going to take care of me first. And that's not always a thought that I have. And so I really admire that in other people where it's like, yeah, like get it, like go for it. Yeah. Or in the sense like stay home, take care of yourself, right? Whatever that might look like. I think that that's a really just awesome trait for somebody to have.
Yeah, when you're empathetic like you are and compassionate like you are, sometimes we forget that we need to focus on ourselves. And sometimes, if we're a little bit more selfish, it'd probably do us a little good. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to serve you up a softball. The perfect thing that youth workers love to do. Who is it somebody you work with that you really admire that has those characteristics or those traits? And there might be more than one, but I'm just asking you to pick one and give an example of why you think you admire that person or respect that person so much.
This one, this is so hard. Um, one person who comes to mind who I worked with at the YWCA in Minneapolis was Jasmine Becker, and she is just one of the most incredible people you would ever meet in your life. Driven, I mean, she has an MBA. She's done a lot of other just incredible work in her life. She's so incredibly caring and empathetic, and really has this incredible ability to kind of see beyond, in the sense that she's so curious, so inquisitive. Um, and there's something about the way that she thinks about things is that she can almost like see a step ahead,
Hmm.
where I would maybe sometimes kind of be like, well, no, aren't we right here? And she'd be like, no, we want to be over here. And it was just that was just such a powerful thing to me. And I think about kind of one of the things that she showed me too in, kind of going to back to that, that I can't think of a better word than individualism, or really self-care, right? I guess that might be a better, a better term. Who was really good about that had sort of started to go down a path and realized that, in particular was she was about to pursue an advanced degree and kind of got started and was like, something isn't feeling right about this right now for me. And took a step back. And I just so admired that, because I think in my brain, you know, if I had started something, even if maybe it didn't feel right, especially if I'm thinking about school, I don't know that I would have had the courage or had the insight to be able to do that.
Hmm.
And so there's so many other wonderful things about her, but trying to connect them back to those, she's just such an incredible human.
Yeah, it's interesting how you described her in relationship to you. And she does sound like an incredible person. And clearly, I want to get you off the hook. I'm sure you could have named a lot of people in your immediate cohort. So I got you off the hook for saying, like, I said only one. So you didn't have to lay out a whole bunch of people. Are
I
you
can,
pretty self reflective? I'm sorry, what?
I can send you a list later.
Okay, yeah. And you'll type it out, I'm sure, and with bullet points or something to make it look really nice. Um, are you a pretty self reflective person by nature?
I don't think in nature, I think it's something that I do try to practice. And actually going back to being in that MBA program, a lot of the coursework was really centered and structured around reflecting on who we were, where we were at, what were our
Hmm.
skills, and as we were learning new things, what did that mean, and how were we going to maybe change the way that we did things? And so, um, I feel like that was another good kind of like refresher and reset of uh, remembering, right? I feel like we get so kind of ingrained in our jobs and roles, and if we have families or other commitments that we might have, we can sometimes forget to take that step back and kind of really think about, you know, am I doing what I want to be doing? Am I where I want to be? Am I the kind of person that I want to be? So it's not, I think it's something that I have to consciously think about.
That's interesting. I think you're right. We do get so busy and so caught up in the moment that we never have that reflection point that just says, how are things going? Where are things at? How did even today go, or the last hour go? We tend to forget to do that. And you say you actively work at that. Angie, like, what do you do to actively be self-reflective? Can you give an example that maybe other people could pick up on? That what do you do?
Yeah, I feel like this sounds very nerdy, but I've definitely scheduled time in my work calendar
Oh,
for reflection. So, 30 minutes on a Friday towards the end of the day, how did my week go? What did I do? Does this feel like a good place? Right. And I feel like I kind of naturally incorporate both like professional and personal thoughts. And so, I feel like that's been something that helps me try to remember, am I doing the things that I've set out to do and that I want to do and that I strive to do? And if not, what do I maybe need to change? Or
hmm. That's interesting to actually put it on your calendar. That is very accomplished, Angie. That's very organized, very structured, very diligent of you. And do you just sit in quiet and not look at your computer because it's tempting to do that email or send an email out? Or do you go for a walk or do you listen to music? What do you do in that 30 minutes when you have time for that?
yeah, I feel like I've done some different things. So it might be, you know, kind of trying to just turn away from the computer, maybe just writing out, trying to free write, what are some thoughts? What am I
Oh,
noticing? Um, it might be just, kind of sitting in the moment, trying to think about, um, where I'm at. I Yeah, I love going for walks. I should do a better job, especially because my office, we're by like a beautiful river and there's a nice little walkway. And the Y is actually across the street and they have a really nice walkway. I should be taking advantage of those things more. But yeah, just kind of trying to find a way to be in the present, not get distracted by, the technologies and yeah, just sort of be able to think for a minute.
yeah, good
Yeah.
strategy. Really good strategy. Just a quick question. Are you an optimist, do you think?
Yes, I think sometimes by almost to a fault that I tend to maybe have an overly hopeful and optimistic attitude about most things in life.
Got it.
Yeah.
I could see that. And we're living in such tough times, it seems like, in our communities and our society in general, or even globally, where it seem to be at each other's throat. And our young people seem to be under so much stress from all the craziness that's going around, or even, you know, you know, climate change and safety in schools, all those things. There's just so much stress on our young people.
Mhm.
So putting on your optimistic cap, what gives you hope about young people today? Or, you know, yeah, I guess that's the question I have. What gives you hope about young people today?
They're already changing the world, right? That youth are driving that, whether or not we as older people recognize. Youth are already beginning to kind of create that next generation and that next culture and that next worldview. Um, and so I think that's what gives me a lot of hope is that they the youth have always changed, right? The youth have always been the ones who've changed where we're at, and I really believe they're going to continue to do so.
Hmm. That is something to make us all feel hopeful. And there is something magical about this cohort of young people. They seem to be rising to the moment, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Angie, thank you so much for all you do. We didn't get to talk about so many things about your work on the Human Rights Commission and all the giving back that you do and all the things you've done directly with young people. I know you spent a lot of time directly working with them as well. But I, for one, am really grateful that you chose this profession and you are working in a field that is so desperately needed uh, to have accomplished people, skilled people, professional people, dedicated people like yourself. And so, thank you for choosing to help them. And also, thank you for being a guest and sharing your story on The Passionate Youth Worker.
And thank you so much for having me. This is really fun, Paul.
Before we go, Angie, what words of wisdom or inspiration would you like to leave with our listeners?
Yeah, I think really kind of the main thing that comes to mind is just always trying to find a way to keep moving forward and again, continuing to strive to that next thing, whatever that next thing might be for you. And um, right, kind of recognizing that our past and our history doesn't define who we are. It's an important piece. It's going to inform the way that we view the world and how we see things. And there's also things that we can change, can do differently. And I feel like that matters too.